Welcome to the Resilience Unlimited Show, your go to podcast for empowerment and growth. I'm Coach Dr. Lauren, founder of Resilience Unlimited, inviting you to join our transformative journey each week. This space is specially crafted for high achieving women, specifically women of color, where we can feel seen, heard, and part of a thriving community. This podcast is your compass for emotional regulation, understanding your purpose, and living unapologetically authentic. Ready to invest in yourself? Welcome back, everyone. I want to touch on a topic that I have continuously been exploring with myself, with clients, but I think this is really something to talk about on a holistic level on the podcast episode. Now, an article from Healthline.com came in my inbox a few minutes ago, and it is talking about the connection between emotional regulation and ADHD. Now, this is something that I am continuously learning through my journey, through client journey, through just interacting with a lot of folks that are coming forward with their ADHD diagnosis or with their suspected ADHD diagnosis. And I think the emotional regulation piece is huge. Even working with student clients that have ADHD, this is something that I think is really not explored enough. This is something that's not understood enough. And I think when you add on the level of being a Black woman or a woman of color, and you have emotional dysregulation, you are already put in a category that is just seen very differently from our white counterparts. And this is why I felt moved to really talk about this, because I know that I've experienced a lot of emotional dysregulation, and it really ties into that executive functioning. So I want to read a quote here in this article, and I will link this article in the episode if you want to take a look at it. But it basically talks about what is emotional dysregulation. And so emotional dysregulation occurs when a person isn't able to control their emotional responses, which is common with ADHD. So simply put, ADHD takes away the brain's pause button. Okay, so we tend to be impetuous, we tend to be impulsive, we tend to say things without thinking. And then that's when that negative self-talk and guilt comes in, where you're like, oh shit, why did I just say that? That was a little harsh. So for many adults with ADHD, it can feel like a roller coaster. So think about all the things that we need to do: pay bills, show up to work on time, be a fully functioning person in society, take care of our mental health. If you're a parent, take care of other people, take care of your kids, take care of your home. So it's an emotional roller coaster. And then it continues to go on to say, it's not that the person with ADHD's emotions are wrong. Now that is huge, because I think more than often society tells us, well, to feel upset is bad, or to feel frustrated is bad, or to feel angry is fill in the blank, right? It's more so that when we feel, we feel so quickly and so deeply, and are more prone to express intense feelings publicly than with someone without ADHD. That quote within itself, I was like, that's me. That's me. That's been me my entire life. And sometimes it's served me in a good way, where I say how I feel and other people are like, I was thinking that same thing. I just didn't have the courage to say it. But then other times it's gotten me in trouble, and that doesn't feel good. And so I think the balance here is the emotional dysregulation is always going to be there. It's about how you build the skills and the capacity to know how to pause. You're more than entitled to feel deeply and quickly, but can we just take a second to pause? Maybe we shouldn't send that rude email. Maybe we shouldn't send that text message. Maybe we should walk away for a few minutes before we curse someone out. So the public piece. So it then continues to say that public display of emotion can intensify the dysregulation that caused it in the first place. So if an ADHD person expresses an emotion in the wrong context, they might then experience follow-up emotions of guilt or shame. Okay. And I'm reading this and I'm like stumbling over my words. Like, wait a second. Like, what? I feel like this article's me. So I think the public piece is when the lack of self-confidence kicks in, the why did I say that? That's embarrassing, overthinking, a whole bunch of those. What's the word I'm looking for? The cognitive distortions. If you're familiar with the cognitive distortions, I think there's about 14 or 15 of them. And your saboteurs and all of the things that pop in our head when we might say and do something that we regret because we felt it so quickly, so emotionally. We might be quick to be like, I hate you. Or even you might be quick to say, I love you. I'm in love. Let's be together. All of the things. So I just think that as we navigate through this era of a time period, we're talking about neurodiversity. I think it's important to really talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I do think it's good that we are talking about, yes, let's celebrate autism. Let's celebrate dyslexia. Let's celebrate ADHD. Let's celebrate dyspraxia, like all of the neurodiversity. And I think that's good and well, but we also need to look at, well, what are the negative downsides of this neurodiversity, this neurodivergent person in the context of where they are and what they're saying and how they're feeling. And it's really important to educate yourself on what does ADHD look like, period. But what does that look like in the context of your personality? And what does that look like in the context of where you are environmentally? So if you're a parent, if you're a mother, how does that show up in your parenting? Are you really emotionally tied to your child's performance? Or do you, flip out when they have behavioral issues and not really take an understanding of maybe where they're coming from? And, how does that show up in your work life? Are you self-employed? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a CEO of a company? Are you whatever? And so you really have to kind of look at, how does this impact me and how can I really gain the skills? As I said before, it's all about the skills and the knowledge, because there's not a good or a bad. It's an is. And it took me a really long time to accept my own struggles with emotional dysregulation and just my lack of executive functioning. I think I'm further along than I was before now that I'm aware and I help others. But there are moments and times where I do feel extremely overwhelmed with all of the tasks and things that need to get done, and I don't know how to prioritize. And I have systems in place to help me when I do have those moments. So I don't tend to get to that, place of emotional dysregulation where maybe I just throw in the towel. Oftentimes I've worked with clients who have either been diagnosed after they lost their job, or they were diagnosed right before they lost their job. And a lot of that really is about understanding, well, why am I losing motivation? Why am I disinterested? Why am I all of a sudden not giving a fuck? I don't care. I'm done. And really the bottom line is that we do care. We really do care. It's just, what are we putting that I don't care emphasis on? Is it something that is going to hurt us in the long run? Is it something that we're saying, because I think there's a difference between letting go of something that doesn't serve you and saying, I don't really care about that anymore, and genuinely meaning that, because then you're bringing in space for something that does matter to you, versus you're frustrated, you're irritated, maybe you don't know your purpose, you're in a position in your life that's just adding more overwhelm and stress. So it's easier to say, I don't care. I'll show up late. I don't care. They can fire me, whatever it is. When really that's not taking charge of who you are in this position of really power, but you can't feel empowered if you don't have the tools to empower yourself. So, like I said, this is a constant conversation that I'm always going to bring up about emotional dysregulation. And from speaking from personal experience, I only had about like 3 emotions. Now, obviously that's not true, but those are the only emotions that I could articulate. I was happy, sad, or frustrated. And that's ridiculous. I mean, that's absurd. If you are familiar with Brene Brown's work, she has a book called, I think, the Emotional Compass, or the Compass of Emotions, or I'll have to get you the title of it, but it is a phenomenal book. I actually listen to it. I do more audiobooks than reading just because of my own attention span. And it's a research study that she turned into a book, basically demonstrating that there's a wide range of emotions. And we have not tapped into that because, again, society doesn't really promote, let's talk about our feelings. Now we're moving more into that. If I look at curriculum that my first grader is embarking on, and also when I was in public school, there was social emotional. We want to be able to navigate these what do we call them? Those big emotions when we're kids. So then when we're adults, we know how to really manage. We know how to be resilient. We know how to ask for what we need, all of those things. But that book opened up my world. It opened up my mind to say there are a slew of emotions, and some of them I just didn't know what they were, didn't know it was an option to say, oh, I'm feeling, I don't know, I can't think of one off the top of my head. But I always tell clients to download the app How We Feel. It is a free app. It's a study done by Yale during the pandemic. I think they realized mental health was at an all-time crisis, and they created this resource that is CBD based. So you find the emotion that you're feeling. And what's great is it's color coded. So you can kind of search through and find a feeling that gives you options. And if you're not sure what that feeling means, it gives you a definition and then you click it. And what's great about it is that you can then document who you were with, where you were, why you're feeling that way. And then they give you some breathing strategies that you could do. And I think that app coupled with Clarity, which is another CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy app, that one is not free. Now they have free options, but that one really helps you break down what cognitive distortions are you experiencing in that moment. And I utilized those apps for probably 6 to 9 months, and it really helped me change my thinking around, is this really true? Validating my feelings too. Okay, I feel this way and that's okay, but I don't need to lash out at other people about it. So again, it's all about finding the resources. If you are interested in learning more about my coaching program, I highly recommend that you schedule a free discovery call. The link is in the show notes. And I would love to learn more about you, what you're struggling with. If the emotional dysregulation really resonated with you, then I want to help you in any way I can. Because like I said, we as a marginalized population, speaking for Black women, we get labeled as the angry Black woman. We're not a team player. We don't say good morning. We got an attitude. And it's like, you know what? I'm over it. We all know that a lot of that is lack of understanding in racism, structural racism, institutionalized racism. And this is why I feel it's a calling for me to connect so I can make sure that our community has the resources to be understood, because we can still be pissed off and angry, but have the tools to articulate why. And we're not seen as that trope. We're seen as, okay, well, that's an articulate Black woman who expressed why she was upset. Now, we still may not like that person, and that's fine. We don't have to like everybody. They don't have to like us either. But it's all about how do we function in society and feel good about ourselves, right? And know like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I can ask for. This is what I need. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to exit stage left and we're all going to be good because it's fine at the end of the day. It's just all about how do you understand you in the context of where you are. So I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel good about where you are and where you're going. So I hope this episode, this very quick episode, resonated with you. Again, this article's link is in the show notes. My discovery call link is in the show notes, and so is my website. So I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Resilience Unlimited show. Be sure to hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. See you next week, divas. And don't forget, stay resilient.